Pradeep, thank you so much for joining us today in this next edition of the Fire Up series. We're just trying to get some interesting experiences from startup founders to share with other startups. Every startup goes through some unique and interesting experiences and learns from it, and that sharing is what we're hoping to do through this series of chats. So, given you have dabbled a lot in the whole agri space and taking innovation that's completely new to that space, I mean, you in general, but more so in that space to the people in that space, whether it's the government or whether it is the various organizations, companies in the supply chain, and all the way up to the farmers. And you managed to do that, kind of understand that, and managed to crack that space reasonably well. So that's the topic for today with you, which is the whole how do we crack the agri value chain for agri innovation.
Right.
So Pradeep, thanks for joining us. And before we get into the topic, can you, in a few minutes, describe your journey? I mean, how did the whole idea of Thanos come about, and how's the journey been in the last 3 years or so?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me and making me a part of this. Always happy to share my experience. So, to give a brief about Thanos and what we do, to summarize it in a single phrase, so to say, we build aerial solutions for terrestrial problems. As simple as that. Whatever the problem statement, we try to see the best possible aerial solutions for that problem that is being faced on the ground. Now, we are a 4-year-old company. We started in 2016. And like most other drone companies back then, we were involved in aerial surveying solutions, which means we took drones off the shelf from DJI or other brands. We captured images, put them into cloud-based analytics platforms, and brought out some outcomes which give useful insights to customers in various sectors like real estate, mining, or even agriculture in a couple of cases where we've given a few solutions. So that's what we started off with. But about 6 to 9 months into the business, we realized that it was becoming very difficult to differentiate. The key differentiation we thought we could bring in when we started the company, that was quickly getting eroded because the drone platforms were becoming pretty standardized, easy to operate, and the online cloud-based platforms are also becoming extremely capable of giving the final end products without we, as the entity or the drone operator, doing a lot of activity. So a lot of stuff was getting automated. So differentiation was difficult, which means the pressure then gets put on the pricing. So it's all about a pricing war in that case and what prior projects you have done for the government or others. And to add to all this, the regulatory environment, as you might have been aware of, that drone regulations are not properly in place or not executed in the best way possible. So that's when we started looking at actual problems that immediately need solving, rather than improving a few things the way data is being collected. We thought we'll solve an immediate problem that needs solving. That's when the problem actually was presented to us directly. We were searching for problems, but before we could find out one, we were presented with the problem. And this had to do with agricultural spraying activity. Because of the fact that we were operating out of co-working spaces like 91 Springboard and then TI like Hyderabad, we had access to a lot of people to whom we were presenting our solutions. Unfortunately, a lot of these people had farming backgrounds back home, and that's why they started coming up to us. Even though we were entirely in a aerial surveying space, they started coming up to us asking for whether we have an automation platform for certain agricultural activities. And the most trickiest activity of this was the agricultural spraying activity. So the key problems that they always repeatedly kept mentioning was one related to manual labor. Now, manual labor keeps migrating constantly from villages, rural areas to cities in search of better life opportunities, because that's where they think the financial aspects are better life opportunities basically. So this manual labor shortage was prompting a lot of farmers and people in the agri industry to look for automation solutions. The second one was the way in which agriculture spraying itself was being done, an extremely inefficient way, leading to wastage of resources, wastage of money, reduced output, and whatnot. The third one, which was also a key problem statement, but extremely underreported or understood in India, I would say, was with respect to health hazards of spraying the hazardous chemicals. Without any proper protection and safety protocols in place, the way our farmers or manual labor does it, it has led to tens of thousands or in fact millions of people because like I said, it was severely underreported. A lot of people got exposed to these chemicals due to continuous work, and there were short-term and long-term illnesses. In some cases, deaths happened because of spurious chemicals also. Quite a few cases in Maharashtra and other states across India. So these problems, which were presented to us, made us think whether this is an activity that is not supposed to be done by humans at all. Whether we can automate it in such a way that a machine can take care of most of the critical part of the activity, the spraying aspect. And that's when we started working on it. And 6 months down the line, in 2017 end, we had a prototype that we started demonstrating to farmers among our known circles and the few initial people who brought up this problem. And we started participating in exhibitions, agri exhibitions, demonstrating this product and gathering feedback. And fast forward to 2020, we have done about 550 acres of activity for more than 50 farmers in a spraying as a service mode. Spraying as a service is not our core revenue model, I would say, but we've started selling drones to agri-service providers and agri-chemical companies to enable this activity on a large scale across India.
So how is that going? I mean, who are these providers? I mean, to whom you're selling the drones?
Right. So agri-wise specifically, I would say there are two different revenue models that I just mentioned. One is where we sell the drone altogether. There is this common question that keeps coming back to us, that how do we assume the farmers themselves can operate these drones, which are perceived to be highly technological, and the operation is also a bit tricky. So our simple answer to that is that we don't expect most farmers to operate these drones because they are the end beneficiaries. They're not the end users in our viewpoint. So there are agri-service providers. At this point, you can count us also as an agri-service provider. And we started providing spraying as a service for the simple fact that it's not sufficient to just create a new technology and something as complicated as this, but you have to show how it is to be used and also how to extract the maximum benefit out of it in the most efficient way. That's why we started spraying as a service model. And because the long-term view we have internally is to be a drone platform provider, the hardware and physical platform provider, rather than be a service provider, we started tying up with agri-chemical companies and agri-service providers like Escorts, and we have quite a few partnerships lined up with agri-service companies like Dehat or Farmizon and a couple of other companies we are in discussion with, through whom, in a B2B2C model, we plan to provide services to the end beneficiaries, which is the farmers.
So, I mean, even the whole problem you discovered because you said some people you talked to mentioned this as a problem.
Right.
So, how did that discovery happen? I think agri innovation, especially tech innovation, the tech world and the agri world reasonably separate. Right? They don't mix much, unfortunately, right?
Okay.
And so how did that connect happen? I mean, where did you get this info that there's a problem which drones could address?
So, any specific problem that we usually identify, just because we are a drone company, we don't just jump into drone-based solutions. We looked at all possible platforms, which are the best suited one, whether it is on ground. We started analyzing what are the current alternatives to that. Now, initially, the problem itself was presented by IT employees in Hyderabad who had farming backgrounds in rural areas around Telangana and AP. That's how we started getting to know that there is a problem like this, but we didn't straight away jump into this because we wanted to understand how ubiquitous, how national or global is this problem? Is it common or is it a specific localized problem that these few set of people have? And we spoke to our family members who were in farming, our friends and others we knew, and through various exhibitions we attended. We did a bit of a survey, market survey, you could say, to understand whether this is a global problem. That's when we realized that, yeah, more or less these three key problem statements seem to be troubling all the farmers across India and across the world also. That's when the problem statement was identified. But the fact that drone is the solution to that was understood after analyzing the current methods of countering the problem. How the farmer does it, how the labor does it, are there tractor-based solutions, are there other autonomous ground-based robotic solutions that are possible? We evaluated all those and it looked like different crops need different kinds of solutions and most of them are on ground. Rice needs a different kind of mechanism, cotton is different, mix is different, but all of them are contact-based. Every other solution has some kind of problem among these three problem statements we identified. And the only platform that can solve all of them at the same time is something that is in the air. Because of the speed at which it flies, the fact that it can avoid obstacles on the ground, the fact that it doesn't need to go into waterlogged paddy or rice fields, all this put together led to the fact that, yeah, an aerial solution would be the best possible solution for all these problem statements put together.
Now, if you fast forward 3 years,
today, can you identify, I mean, what channels exist? If today somebody must look at agri-innovation, what would be the channels that you think exist to discover the problem and validate the solution before even going off critical? The exercise that you did, how do you validate that? I mean, today, what are the avenues available today if somebody has to do it?
Now, there is an active direct approach and an indirect approach, both of them. And fortunately, in our case, because the problem statement was presented to us, we've been quite lucky. But otherwise, what we keep suggesting to other startups which are very early and trying to look at agri space or any space in general is not to try to build a product for a problem that you assume, but rather identify the problem from the end users or the customers you think it might be useful, get a few set of assumptions, get the problem statement, and then start building it. So in agri specifically, I would say the direct approach would be, if you're getting into agri, to talk to a few farmers. And it's not very difficult to get in touch with farmers. Almost all of us know someone who's into farming background, and there's so many other agri startups also out there. Not everybody focuses on each and every problem out there. So there's a lot of people who have field experience, who can give you their learnings, who can tell you what problems they're facing. And in addition to this, there are quite a few agri produce companies or product companies also. People are into various stages of the value chain, all the way from starting from seed fertilizer companies to post-harvesting technologies. There are several of these entities who you can get in touch with, either at incubators or through people you know. There's quite a few opportunities to understand or get the initial perspective of what happens over there. And yeah, nothing like getting in touch with an actual farmer to understand the entire life cycle and find out what the problems they are facing is.
So directly access the farmers is one. You tech industry, quite a few people with families in farming or roots in farming. So directly go to the farmers or go through the tech industry to the farmers. And then you're saying find a service, other services providers, could be seeds or fertilizers or any. So find the companies or that supply chain. So anybody in the supply chain could be another avenue. Right. And the third avenue mentioned is the whole technology space in the providers of equipment and such. Right. So those are three. Okay. I mean, that's a good. Now, just discover the problem, validate the problem before you start building. Once you've built it, what are the avenues to take it out? I understand the different solutions may have different needs and channels. But by that, what are some of the avenues if you need to go to the farmers directly, supposing the solution goes to the farmer, what are the avenues to take it to the farmers?
Right. So I can tell you what we've done. Now, because we have not reached such a huge scale yet, we are still experimenting with some of those go-to-market sales channels. But what we have done and where we've got a little bit of success is participating in agri exhibitions gets you the direct visibility in front of the direct users or the service providers.
Agri exhibitions. Sorry, what agri exhibition?
Okay. Exhibitions, expos that happen like Agritech, which happens in Hyderabad and Maharashtra. There is one major national event called Kisan, which happens every year in October to December time. where lakhs of farmers from across the country come. So these kind of avenues, you have a chance to either before building the product, you can go and interact and understand what kind of solutions are there, or after building, you get direct feedback from the customers themselves. And several times, what we've seen is we get direct inquiries in this kind of places, either from farmers or agri-service providers, and sometimes there are opportunities for partnerships. And when I say partnerships, at least what worked out well for us is in the B2B2C approach, tying up with agri-chemical companies. So we worked with 3 out of the world's largest top 10 agri-chemical companies, Bayer, Syngenta, and Adama also. So these are a few companies we already worked with, and the kind of insights they have given their extensive market presence across India, that's truly invaluable. The kind of insights you can get from us, and the network that they have through which you can reach out to any place you want, where you want to provide the service, that's also very useful. And then there are the agri-service providers who are a bridge between these product companies and the end user, who provide the services using machineries or as simple as delivering the fertilizers or seeds, which is a major activity which is happening even during COVID-19. So these B2B2C channels is something we think is best useful for a company like us.
Larger companies are good because it's one entity you deal with and they have their own dealer distribution network to take it out. When you go to the service providers, they are themselves distributed right across the country.
Right.
So
right.
Is there any good avenue to get to them, to lot of them in one shot, or you have to go to each area and try separately?
Lot of them in one shot would be tricky. The only place where you get to see, if not all of them, quite a few of them would be in agri exhibitions and agri events and conferences that happen. Quite a few of them have some good presence over there, be it Escorts or they have recent agri delivery companies which are there as well, AgroStar and others. They are usually present at these major agri events. That's one option. But all of these companies, a lot of these companies are still in the early to mid stage. So simply picking up the phone and giving a cold call also makes sense because you're in a relevant industry. In fact, we got quite a few calls from such agri-service companies wherein they had their own set of services, but they wanted to tie up with companies like us to expand their service horizon. Even cold calls would work to at least get their initial interest in such a field. Based on which
and these are typically at what standard? They're at a district level or lesser than a district? Typically in what region do they operate?
The ones that we work with operate at a village level. Agri-chemical companies have their own, so different agri-chemical companies.
No, not what I meant. That way, yes, at the end of the day, they have to go to the villages, but it is one agency that is operating in a whole district or like in a whole. What is the strategy of these agencies in terms of which all villages they reach?
So in the case of agri-service providers, some of them have franchisees, which means the individual franchisee operates at a village level, and the bigger the capacity, they operate at the district level as well. And we usually get connected to either the franchisee or district level manager they have to their head office. In the case of agri-chemical companies, they always have their own field officer, as in a full-time employee of that agri-chemical company, who is coordinating with these regional, district-based or village-based agents that they have. There's always a person on the field level. That's how at least it was a bit easy for us to get all the way connected directly to the farmer or the local distributor.
So at a macro level can be the company itself, like the fertilizer company, the seed company, and then use their own network to get to where they go. Or if it's direct service providers, then typically they're at a district level. They operate through their own franchises, but typically at a district level.
Yeah, so you have super distributors, and then village level distributors. Based on that,
the whole value chain, which are the organizations? Of course, at the field level, for them, it's all about business. If the service or technology can help them get more revenue, they'll probably take it.
Right.
But otherwise, who in the supply chain is more open to exploring? Some of the innovations may need some experimentation.
Right.
The model may not be immediately obvious. So who of these are willing to experiment with new innovation in this whole value chain?
So I can tell you about our experience, wherein through these agri-chemical companies, we first got to demonstrate our solutions to the progressive farmers. Now, any new technology obviously will be met with skepticism, especially by the farmers, because they've been conventionally used to their own methods, and farmers are the masters of the segment, you could say, in terms of the knowledge that they have. Nobody better than them in terms of the field experience. So they will meet every new technology with skepticism until unless proved. So the progressive farmers, very small segment of the entire farming population, I would say, are the ones who would be first willing to try, who've probably seen it on YouTube or elsewhere in the media that this is being used in US, Europe, or China, and want to experiment it. Now, obviously, some of them won't give their entire fields for experimentation. Half an acre, 1 acre pilots or demonstrations is what we have to do. And that's what we've also done in various locations in Telangana, AP, and Maharashtra. With that initial level, what happens is usually there is word of mouth effect in agriculture. The surrounding villages or the entire mandal hears about it because when this kind of new technology demonstration happens, there's usually a big crowd. Now, drones obviously attract a lot more attention because they're simply exciting because they fly in the air. But even other technologies, there's a group of farmers who come just to see how it works. Once that is done, the word quickly spreads and a lot of people get to know about it. That's been our easiest approach, even through the B2B2C approach, the easiest way to spread information about the technology.
So the pilots are the key. Where you go do some pilot and that
creates a direct marketing almost, a direct marketing channel.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So before we conclude, Pradeep, one growth hack tip from your experiences,
professionally, otherwise, but more specifically entrepreneurially as an entrepreneur, one growth hack tip you would share with other startups.
Okay, so it would be, I would say it is two-part in the sense that not just for growth, for to start as well in the early stages. What we found useful was that we didn't wait for the perfect product. Now, this is a common advice that people give and one that we were given as well. We didn't wait for the perfect product that works perfectly, looks perfectly to come out into the market. We had an initial prototype, which, if we look back, is not even half the capacity that we have today or half as good as what we have today. But we went to the market anyway. We went demonstrating that product. And that's where we validated all our assumptions and understood, okay, that this has certain value and this doesn't. So based on what we tweaked the features, added new features and refined it more to make it more market ready. So that is very important that you have to build a basic version and go to the market. But even before that, we shouldn't try to build something and then go to the market, but first get the problem statement and accordingly build a solution for that. That is something we have followed. And I think that is a very important thing that any early stage or new entrepreneur needs to keep in mind. Other one for growth is through networks, I would say. Do pilots or demonstrations to existing customers, get good reviews, testimonials, and share them across to show your show the value that you are creating and get some good reputation going out there. And the other one would be to tie up with people who are already there in the market on a, I would say, people with exclusive different services, not one who for the same thing, others who are already in the market, who are directly in touch with customers, tie up with them, take the solution to the market, and accordingly expand from there. That I believe would help scale at a much faster rate.
So,
sorry, my thing got muted a little bit. Validate upfront before you start. Don't wait for perfection. Get something reasonably complete and take it out there, and then test it out and get the feedback and use that feedback to refine and complete the product. And use the networks. Fantastic. So, Pradeep, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today. And all the best in your journey in general and specifically kind of dealing with the current lockdown. I'm sure some good will come out of it. And at least you are in a business which is, like they say, recession proof. I mean, agri space where hopefully it's only a short-term lull and once the lockdown relaxes. So thank you, Pradeep, and all the best.
Thank you. Thank you.